Good evening. Welcome to this edition of Immigration Issues. You may wonder, why are we on at this time slot since it's not our usual third Wednesday of the month? And the reason is that this is normally Carolyn Schoenberger's time slot, and she is in Marrakesh. Some people have the best excuse for missing their own television show. So she's going to be taking our regular time slot, and we are in her time slot today. So welcome. So for those of you who don't normally tune in to Immigration Issues, we are normally on the third Wednesday of every month, and I urge you to tune in on the third Wednesday of every month because it's an informative and interesting show, and we have a special guest every time. Our special guest today is Diandra Brown, who will tell us all about the Amate Fellowship, where she serves at the clinic. The Chicago Legal Clinic is an organization that was established in about 1982 by two law school classmates at DePaul, Ed Grossman and then Father Paprocki. They saw the need for high-quality, low-cost legal services when the steel mills in South Chicago closed down. So our organization established its flagship office in South Chicago. From that time, the organization grew and it developed many outlying offices. Today, we are in a new period of transition. We have a new executive director, Adam Salzman, but our fundamental mission remains the same, and our mission is to eliminate the barriers to high-quality, low-cost legal services. And we serve primarily a low-income population. Our attorneys are genuinely dedicated and caring individuals, and skillful, I might add. It is my pleasure to practice immigration law at the Chicago Legal Clinic. We are right now located, our main office is now at 211 West Wacker in downtown Chicago. We are on Wacker and Wells, across the street from the Merchandise Mart. We are going to be opening an office in an inner Cook County suburb. So this is a very exciting time in the life of our organization as we move into another stage. And it is thought that this organization will probably be opening an office in probably in Cicero, but this is still in the planning stages. So it's very exciting. It's very interesting to watch an organization transition to a new phase in its development, but fundamentally we remain the same mission-oriented organization designed to serve you and to serve the legal community and primarily low-income individuals. We have an extensive family law practice, which Diandra is part of. I do immigration law with Joel Stopka, who was on our last show, and we also service the help desks in the downtown Daily Center and the municipal help desks, serving people in foreclosure and eviction problems, housing issues. We have a special expertise in domestic violence. We do this from both a family law perspective, that in terms of dissolution of marriage, and I handle VAWA cases for people who are the victims of domestic violence and have been married to a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. I also handle U visas, of which domestic violence can be one component. A U visa, for those of you who don't know, is a visa which is extended to people who have been of assistance who have been the victims of certain qualifying crimes, most but not all of which are serious violent crimes, and have assisted law enforcement in the investigation and apprehension of the wrongdoer. It is primarily a law enforcement tool to help bring wrongdoers to justice. And people who are the victims of domestic violence but are not married to a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident. They are married, for example, to an undocumented person, or there are other contexts for domestic violence, may be eligible for a U visa. So that is something we have a special expertise in and a special concern about. And this extends to men as well as to women. I myself have handled VAWAs, which, although it's entitled Violence Against Women Act, I have handled VAWAs against where the man has been the victim, and I have handled 751s to remove the conditionality on a person's green card where a marriage breaks up due to domestic violence. And I've handled that for men successfully as for women successfully. So there are a variety of contexts in which we serve people who are survivors of domestic violence. If we can help you, please give us a call. We have an intake line. We have Spanish speakers who will call you back on the intake line. So we want to hear from you, and we are there to help you. Let's do a little roundup of what has happened in immigration land and where we are, and then we're going to turn to our special guest. 2017, our president enacted a ban against people coming in from certain countries. Those countries then were Chad, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Syria, Venezuela, and Yemen. Chad was removed from the list. Not every ban covers the same people. For example, the ban against Venezuela suspends the entry of certain government officials and their family members on business or tourist visas, where, for example, the ban on North Korea suspends the entry of all immigrants and non-immigrants. You have to look at the law to see whose entry is actually prohibited. This ban was then extended on January 31st of this year. The following countries were included in the ban: Burma, Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Nigeria, Sudan, and Tanzania. This ban generally extends only to people seeking immigrant visas, usually permanent status, that is, coming in as potential permanent residents. It does not usually extend for non-immigrant visas, that is, student visas, M1 visas, tourist visas. But you need to read the specific ban if you have a relative who is affected by one of these bans. You need to read it to see if they really are affected by it. It's especially disturbing to me as a practitioner that Nigeria would be included. I have many clients who have waited many years to come to the country. They filed, their loved ones filed applications for them properly. They filed the entire legal process. They waited a long time for their visas to become current, and now they can't. Their member abroad cannot join the rest of the family here. When you talk about a visa being current, you have to look at the Visa Priority Bulletin. For example, Nigeria, a visa filed for an adult unmarried son or daughter of a U.S. citizen. Those visas are current as of October 8th, 2013. So those people are going to be waiting a very long time. It's 2020, and they're only up to people who filed in 2013. So you can imagine how disturbing it is when I have clients who filed many, many years ago. The visas are finally current, and now there's a ban. F4s. F4 is a visa by a brother or a sister for a sibling. Those visas are take a very long time to become current for any of the countries. For the Philippines, they are on cases that were filed in 1999, more than 20 years ago. For Mexico, 1998. For India, 2004. For China, 2006. And for all other areas, July 1 of 2006. How fair is it to ban a person from entering as a permanent resident when that person has waited 10, 20 years for their visa to become current, and they followed the entire process, dotting every T, dotting every I, and crossing every T? Think about that. That can't be right. From a practical standpoint, one of the most immediate changes that are taking effect is the implementation of the public charge rules. We don't know exactly how these are going to be applied, but I would say this. If you are a candidate for adjustment and your case is going to be filed now, because these rules take effect as of February 24th of this year. You should really seek the advice of an attorney, because it's not the same process as it was before. Previously, the person simply had the sponsor file an I-864 showing that the sponsor's income, taking into account the number of people in the sponsor's family, exceeded 125% of the poverty guidelines when they to add one more person for the immigrant. Now it is a much more complex process. And I might say it raises disturbing issues not only in terms of the practicalities of a person being able to adjust, but it raises some serious constitutional questions when you consider why that public charge rule is in effect in Illinois. Cases were filed in New York to challenge the implementation of the public charge ban, because the purpose of the original public charge rules, the statute, is to prevent people from being who are primarily and mainly relying on public aid, public benefits in order to subsist. The actual language of the public charge new rules is who might someday possibly be relying on public benefits, which is a very amorphous standard, to say the least. So New York filed a challenge to these rules. The district court in New York issued a nationwide injunction. The nation was not really the client. It was specific plaintiffs in New York. The government took an immediate appeal to the Supreme Court, bypassing the appellate process. A stay against that nationwide enforcement of the injunction was issued. When the Supreme Court did this, they did not make a decision on the merits of the case. They simply said in so many words, we're not in favor of nationwide injunctions when the nation's not the client. The next thing that happened was Illinois. In Illinois, Cook County Hospital, representing a group of social service organizations, filed a challenge to the law. A very limited injunction was issued. This injunction simply applied to one state, Illinois. And when the government took an appeal, which they first did to the Court of Appeals, the Court of Appeals set an expedited briefing schedule. Then the government leaped over the entire appellate process, ran to the Supreme Court, said there's irreparable harm, and got a stay of the injunction. Sotomayor wrote a scathing dissent, which was joined by Ginsburg, Breyer, and Kagan. And in this, she said that, I don't know what is worse, that the government sought to bypass the entire appellate process, or that the Supreme Court took the case. In thinly veiled language, she's really saying, what are you doing? You're hopping to do a political favor for the president when there is no irreparable harm. We have followed the prior rules for the last 20 years, and to follow them a little longer hardly constitutes irreparable harm. In a real dig at her colleagues, she said, we don't take cases for stays of executions in capital cases where there really is irreparable harm, that is the loss of life, and we tell them, well, you didn't raise your issues timely enough. And now you take this case, which applies to one state, following a law that's been in effect for 20 years, and you say there's irreparable harm, and you issue a stay against an injunction? Well, you have to wonder, there's something wrong here. And it's disturbing. It's a constitutional question as well as a harm for hardworking litigants. Think of it. If you're a green card holder and you've managed not to use cash benefits all this time, you're only going to be more stable economically when you get your permanent resident card. Where would my father, where would my grandfather be? Where would most of the people who made this country be if we had applied these rules? If we have a little bit of time, I'm going to go over the questionnaire with you so you know what is in the public charge questionnaire. But I would like to save some time to talk to our very special guest. Please introduce yourself, tell us about your background, and then tell us about the Amate Fellowship and what the program is.
Absolutely. So hello, I'm Diandra Brown. I grew up in Long Island, New York, so far from home for the first time, kind of. I just graduated from Loyola University in Maryland, political science degree, trying to use it the best I can now, working at the clinic. But I got to the clinic through Amate House, which is a really special program, holds a very special place in my heart. And I didn't think I was going to be here. I'm not going to lie. Senior year of college, I applied for a Fulbright scholarship, and I did not get it. And so I was scrambling a little bit. I was like, what am I going to do?
Lucky for us.
Exactly.
Deandra is one of the best and the brightest.
Thank you so much. I really was scrambling, though. I was like, I don't know what my next steps are going to be. I went to Humanities Fair at Loyola and found Amate House. And spoke to Natalie Crary, who is now my house coordinator.
What does Amate mean?
Amate means love. And that's what we say all the time, all my housemates. Amate means love. That's kind of our joke. And it really embodies that. The whole program, what it's about, what we stand for, really comes from a place of love.
Is this a religiously oriented program? What is the spiritual context?
Absolutely. So it definitely is religiously oriented. However, it's a Catholic program, but I am not Catholic, and there are many others in the program who aren't Catholic either. And we still find a way to live with others in the house who are of Catholic faith and also just have meaningful conversations around religion, not around religion. The fact that it's a Catholic program didn't deter me, and I don't think it should deter others from applying. It's a great program, regardless of whatever faith background you come from. So it was established in 1984 as a leadership program for young adults, and now it kind of serves as like a postgraduate step into the real world. You know, you graduate from undergrad, you do Amate House, you get placed with a site, and Amate House has placements in a lot of different fields. I listed some here, but this is not even all of them. Legal services, like myself at the clinic, healthcare, immigration, education, women's empowerment, ministry, social service, like environment. There's so many different programs that you can be placed with through Amate House. And they do a really good job of professional development and kind of getting you ready for the next step with a little more solid footing, because it's scary to go straight from undergrad to the real world. That's a little bit intimidating. So for those who don't really know what their next step is going to be yet, or they want to try something different, like living in community, that's a really hard, challenging thing, but it's
Well,
very
what does
different.
that mean, living in community? Who are you living with? Where are you living? What do you do in community? What does that really mean?
Absolutely. So living in community means pushing your boundaries and kind of stepping into new spaces, because you're living in an intentional space with others. For me, I live with 8 others in the house.
And what are the other people doing? And what faith traditions do they come from? What's their background?
Sure. So my house is predominantly Midwest. We have people from Wisconsin, a few people from Chicago, Indiana, Ohio. We run the gamut a little bit of the Midwest, or whatever people consider. You know, everyone has their own version of what the Midwest includes. And I'm the only ones from the East Coast, so it definitely was a culture shock, and that's part of community as well, is that we're all coming from these different parts of the country. We're coming from these different faith backgrounds.
What are the faith backgrounds represented?
So there's a lot of Catholics in the house. There's a few of my housemates who were Protestant, who kind of don't really associate with that religion anymore. Some don't associate with religion at all. I am Christian. I really dive into Buddhism, though, so it's a large spectrum. And that has caused us to have some really interesting, deep, meaningful conversations that I don't think we would have if we were all just of the same background, of the same faith. So we're able to have these really intense, intellectual, funny, silly conversations. And I think that stems from us just coming from all over.
And what kind of programs are the others doing?
Absolutely. So Amate House falls under the Archdiocese of Chicago. So some people work more closely with the Archdiocese in different offices. Some people work for Catholic Charities. Some people work for caseworking, kind of, to help those in marginalized communities find jobs, resume building, things like that. Others work with survivors of torture from other countries. So we're really doing different, meaningful. Some people work in ministry at Rupe College, at Loyola, Dar Center. There's just a lot of different avenues you could go down with Amate, which is awesome.
What do you do each day?
With Amate? Mm-hmm. Okay, so each day
And
is...
for us, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So each day is communal breakfast sometimes. It's nice because I have like my breakfast cruise. So some people leave at like 6 a.m. I could never do it. And others leave, like me, I leave at like 8:39. So breakfast with some people in your house, maybe not. Then I come to the clinic and I work in the family law program. So every day is different. Sometimes it's drafting, pleadings, motions. Sometimes it's going to court with Marta, who is my direct supervisor. And so every day is kind of different. And then we all come home and we have communal dinner from Monday to Thursdays. So we all sit down, have dinner intentionally together. 2 people are in charge of cooking every day. And you're making a meal for like 9 people, so there's a lot. It's a lot, but totally worth it because those times where we're eating dinner together is where we really connect after like long, stressful, difficult days in these really difficult places that we're working.
I must say, Diandra is very fortunate to work with Marta Bucata, who's one of our, just an outstanding, extremely experienced, wonderful family law practitioner. So you're really getting an insight into what the practice is like.
Oh, yeah.
What do you plan on doing after your time? How long is your program? How long is it
Right,
for?
so Amate House is about 10 months. So we came in August, had a week and a half about of orientation, and then we dived into our placements. And then I'm here until June, and hopefully next step is law school. I'm in the midst of applying and studying, and life is hard but fun because, you know, the LSAT is a tough one, but it's been really rewarding.
That's just great.
Yeah,
it's a really wonderful thing to have you here. It's just wonderful. How if I'm a student, if I'm how do I apply for it? Where do I find out about it? What do I do?
Absolutely. So
What are the qualifications?
qualifications, there really aren't many. It's just that I'm pretty sure it's for those who have graduated undergrad. But
So do you always apply in your senior year? Is that what you do? Or?
some people wait a year after. You know, it's kind of when you feel you're ready for this next step. Because Amate House is a great program, but it is challenging at points. You can Google Amate House, go on their website, and they give you the mission. They break it down. I have the mission here. It's so great. It's so important. And you kind of just start applying and you get through the process. And it's really easy. And they're there with you every step. There's a few stages you go through. You interview with the house coordinators, the program coordinators, and then you interview at your individual site as well. So.
Well, a lot of programs are very competitive academically.
Yeah.
How do they screen people? Who are they looking for?
So a great thing about Amate is that they're not asking you your undergraduate GPA. They're asking you how you can live in a community and how you solve conflict and how you kind of work with others. So it's not about this like, what you do in undergrad. Like obviously that helps, that's great, but it really is about how can you, why do you want to work in social justice? And how can you live with others? And how do you feel you can add to this community, which I think is awesome. I don't think really any of the questions I was asked in this interview with Amate House had to do with my undergraduate GPA. Was I on honor roll? It wasn't those questions. It was, how can you live with others? Why do you care about social justice? And what is your aim at the end of this program?
So when did you apply exactly? What is the application period?
Right. So you can start applying, I want to say as early as February, around there. We have prospective fellows come into the house all the time. So you can kind of get a weekend dive into the program. You can stay in one of our guest rooms and see how we function, which is a really cool feature. And I applied in April, so I was definitely on the later end because of what I had going on. But you can apply as early as March, I'm pretty sure. I want to say even earlier than that, especially if you're really interested.
Is it an online application or is it a written application?
It's an online application.
Is there an essay that comes with it, or is it, or do they just rely on meeting you and talking to you?
I think there would be, there's a personal statement, which again just gives you a good chance to really work through your writing skills and kind of give you a chance to go through interview processes, see how you interview, and see what you can work on. So
how has Amate House changed you?
Oh my goodness, so many ways. I think that I always had this thinking of others. I was really big on that. I think Amate House has really kind of refined that and showed me that even in those hard times, you have to think about the other person. Even when someone's getting on your nerves, when you're in a fight with someone, where are they coming from? What's going on in their life that they're being this way? And I think that's really something that I've learned, patience, because of my housemates. They're always like, not because they're annoying, but because they're always like, Diandra, like, let's think about this. Like, they challenge me to think in ways that I never did before. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's a great program.
It sounds like it's an amazing background, that
Yeah.
you'll be an extraordinary lawyer because you'd be calm enough to see all sides of
Right,
the issue
yeah.
and actually mediate and think through what's going on.
Absolutely.
So I urge all of you if you are an undergraduate, I urge you to look into this program. We at the clinic are thrilled to have Diandra, and the work that she's done has been essential to us, and we're seeking more Amate House fellows. So, and we give the people real work to do.
Absolutely.
It's not make work, it's work we really need done, because the way we have low-cost services is we have a relatively small staff. So we do rely on people like Diandra to help us. So, and you'll get to see really what a public interest lawyer does. In my case, it's immigration. In Marta's case, it's family law. But it's really getting in there and really working. So I urge any undergraduate who is looking towards a life of service to apply for this wonderful program. And I hope that you're going to apply to what we advertised. I hope you applied for us too, because we definitely are looking to get some help from the Amate Fellows. If you have a legal problem that we can help you with, whether it is family law, immigration, domestic violence, the municipal desk, or any other problem that we can help you with, I hope that you will feel free to call us. If I don't see any questioners on the phone, but we would have loved to hear your questions, and we are very glad you've tuned in. Please come back and see immigration issues on April 15th, when Marta Bucata, who is Diandra's supervisor, will be our special guest. So definitely come back, watch us, and Carolyn Schoenberger will be on in the next time slot this time next month. Well, no, she'll be on my time slot this month, and then the following month we'll be back on track. All right, thank you so much.